All right, you guys can't seem to get enough of these trivia videos, so we're going to a different channel this time. I don't believe this particular one has multiple choice, so we're going to be kind of on our own. Let me show you the channel. It's Ultimate Quizzes, and this is 40 hard trivia questions to answer about the U.S. So we're going to dive right into this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to wait until, I believe they have a timeline on their videos like that shows you when it's going to show the answer. I'm going to try to wait to give you guys a chance to answer. Some of you complained I didn't do that because I was trying to answer really fast with the other ones. So I'll let it go near to the very end, and if I know the answer, I'll say it right before it shows. So let's go ahead and dive in. This is American history, so I better do well on this. Might be a challenge for some of you folks, and that's okay. We're all going to learn together, I think. 40 questions. It says it's hard, so we'll see. The link's in the description if you want to check out the channel or the original content. 1959. It's Alaska and Hawaii, 1959. This is true. Lusitania. Up until then, it was pretty evenly split, I would say, between pro-Central Powers, pro-Allies. If you know FDR's speech, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. He was a senator before the war, U.S. senator. He had led West Point, Secretary of War, Jefferson Davis. I almost waited too long to say that one. The Mayflower. There were two ships. There was the Speedwell, but it kept springing a leak, and they had to keep going back. Finally, they loaded everybody from the Speedwell onto the Mayflower. A few people couldn't fit and went back to Leiden, Holland. Oh, man, I remember this day. It's one of those historical events you'll never forget. Pakistan. Islamabad, Pakistan. If you go there today, it's kind of a tourist trap. There's not a lot to see. It's Massachusetts. It's just north of Boston. A lot of witch stuff there. It's not really a lot of historic stuff to see. Ooh, 1919. I was going to say 1920, and I changed my mind and said 1919. I should have stuck with it. Upstate New York. Battle of Saratoga. It got the French into the war. It was huge. Darn it, I missed that one about Prohibition. That sounds about right. 1867, Seward was the Secretary of State. Yeah. The Marshall Plan. George C. Marshall was Secretary of State. After being general, like the Chief of Staff during the war. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Ended the Mexican-American War. It was signed in Philadelphia, but was not signed on the 4th of July. Most of them signed on August 2nd. I want to pause here because this is a common misconception people have, right? The resolution for independence was adopted on the 2nd, and John Adams thought July 2nd would be the day that was celebrated. The final wording of the Declaration of Independence was approved, I think, on July 4th. I think that's why we ended up with that date. And then they had to order the embossed copy that everybody signed, and it took a couple weeks for them to get that. So once they approved the wording, and that's why it's July 4th on the Declaration, because that's the day the Declaration was approved, even though the Independence Resolution was approved on the 2nd. Then they all gathered, as many as could, and signed on August 2nd. That would be the Republican Party. Their first nominee for president in 1856 was John C. Fremont, and then, of course, Lincoln in 1860. Woodrow Wilson's baby, the League of Nations, which ended up disbanding in the 1930s because they couldn't prevent war. That would be Crazy Horse. And it's important to note with it, Sitting Bull. Crazy Horse was one of the warriors, but Sitting Bull was the commander. And, part of the back of my brain thought, I don't know if Crazy Horse was in charge, but again, should have said, I don't know if I would have remembered it was Sitting Bull, but Crazy Horse was kind of the warrior that everybody remembers, but not in charge. So it's important to note that it wasn't the entire 7th Cavalry that was destroyed in this battle, right? It was just the elements that were with Custer. Custer split his cavalry into 3 sections. There was one under Major Reno, one under Captain Benteen, and then the unit that was with him, a couple of companies. The ones that were with him were the ones that were wiped out. That one's pretty easy. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that week. Puerto Rico, Guam, Cuba, and the Philippines, though there was continual fighting in the Philippines for a while after this. All right, again, this one's going to be a little tricky. If we're talking about under the Constitution, it's New York City. I think that's what the answer is going to be. Yeah. That's where George Washington was sworn in. And then they moved it to Philadelphia as kind of a temporary. It went from New York to Philadelphia. And then once Washington, D.C. was built enough to move the capital there, they moved from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Oh, trick question. One I already answered for you. It was August of 1776. That's false. It was in the 1950s. Brown versus Board of Education. That was Topeka, Kansas. Did a video on that. Great Depression, 1929. Stock market crash. Probably didn't get worse for a few years, though. Nixon. Oh, it was Carter. Nixon went to China. And that was a really big deal at the time that he did that. But he must not have actually I just, for some reason, was thinking that when he went, he formally recognized it. So, all right. Just celebrated his 99th birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, President Carter. Not a great presidency, but a phenomenal human being. Absolutely. One of the best people that's ever been president in terms of just being a good person. Boston Massacre was 1773? Might have been 2. 1770. All right, I'm thinking of the Boston Tea Party, which was, I think, 1773. Forgot the Boston Massacre was that soon. Man, I am awful today. These are answers I know. We had some stations for this here in Northeast Ohio, the Underground Railroad. Challenger in 1986. I remember that day. In Columbia in 2003? Might have been later than that. I know Bush was president. But boy, if you weren't alive for this, and maybe I'll probably have to do a video on this sometime. You want to talk about events that jarred your childhood? The Challenger explosion was a big, big deal because there was this whole, there had been a bunch of shuttle missions, right? And so shuttle missions had become routine and people didn't pay a ton of attention to them. But this one people were paying attention to because it was, they were putting a teacher in space, Krista McAuliffe. There had been this big contest and she had ended up winning and she was going to do lessons from the shuttle, from space. And so hundreds of thousands of school students were watching this launch live. They were wheeling like TVs into auditoriums and students watched this live as this shuttle exploded in front of everybody. And I remember going home from school that day. It was like middle of the afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And everybody at my house was sitting around the TV watching this news coverage. And I'll never, ever forget Ronald Reagan's speech that night. And he specifically spoke to the school children of America about how this is part of exploration, that sometimes there's danger involved. And, say what you want about Reagan's presidency. He was a phenomenal communicator, and that came from his decades of acting experience. And he hit the perfect tone in that speech. He really did. This was FDR's New Deal. A lot of it, to this day, we still see some of the ramifications of that. This is 1919, I think. Oh my gosh, that's twice I've said 1919 when it was 1920. Oh, you're killing me. Oh. Washington, D.C., the Lincoln Memorial, 1962. I think it was 62. Bit of a firebrand, this guy. Sam Adams. John's cousin. Oh, yeah. Wonder if I'm related to him. Edward Snowden. It's my father's last name, so that's why I wondered that. Should technically be my last name, I guess. What president had his sister as the first lady? Buchanan? No, I think it was his niece. It was Buchanan. Okay. Buchanan was never married. Only president was never married. Omaha and Utah. Gold, Sword, and Juneau were the other three. (1865). First woman to lead an armed assault of U.S. forces. I have no idea. Oh, yes, Harriet Tubman. Yeah, during the American Civil War. This woman, I know there's been talk of doing it. She needs to be on the $20 bill. I am 100% in favor of that. I know it's been discussed. Get Andrew Jackson the heck off of there. Put Harriet Tubman on it. And honestly, there's an image of her holding a gun. I know it'll never happen, but that'd be the one I'd put. We need to do like a lot of other countries do and mix it up on our money instead of having the same people year after year. There's so many great Americans who weren't founding fathers or presidents that we could be putting on our money. Apollo 11, January 20th, 1969. (1814), following the Battle of Bladensburg. '49. That's got to be, I want to say, I think the NFL was around by then. I'm going to say it's the NBA. Yes. I think the NFL is older than that. 13th Amendment. The 13th, 14th, and 15th are called the Reconstruction Amendments because they all have to do with slavery and its aftermath and what to do with newly freed slaves. Ooh. Continuously inhabited streets. Got to be... I'm going to pause for a second because this is the last one. I want to get it right. I really don't know this for sure. I'm going to say Plymouth, Massachusetts. Might be St. Augustine. Philadelphia, really? Okay. Continuously inhabited. All right, so I did not do nearly as well on that one as I would have liked to, and I'm a little ashamed of how I did. And you guys can appropriately roast me in the comments for some of those ones that I missed that I absolutely should not have. They have a Henry VIII history knowledge quiz. I think we might be doing that one. I'm recording a lot of these for while I'm gone in Germany and Austria. So, yeah, we're going to have to do that one too. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon.